Living the Vibes is officially on Spotify!
Living the Vibes with Viaman.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition, episode 9 of Living the Vibes. I'm your host, Viaman. So Living the Vibes is finally on Spotify. After 2 months of posting on YouTube, we are now on Spotify, on the Spotify platform, and you can, instead of watching my face on YouTube, you can only listen to my voice on Spotify. And very soon it will be available on our platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. So when I started a podcast, I was really considering where it's gonna be a video or an audio file, because on the platforms like Spotify, podcasts are more preferred actually than places like YouTube, at least for now. I started to make a research about how to post my podcast on these platforms, and there were a few hosting sites like Riverside, Gastas, RSS, and many more. All of them had free plan, but unfortunately their free plans were for about 10 to 30 minutes for a month, which is not enough, because people are making at least 15 to 20 minute podcasts, and if you do every single week, that means that you need somewhere between 120 to 160 minutes every single month, and 20 minutes is not enough. So I have googled a free hosting site, and I found one that was called Anchor. But then it turns out that Anchor wasn't existing anymore. But it actually was existing, because Anchor was now a part of Spotify. When you get on Spotify's website, you can see the purple line, the blue line actually, from the top, that Anchor is now part of Spotify for podcasters. So this is the place when you can upload your podcast for free, unlimited time every single month. So basically you upload your podcasts to Spotify, and you can actually upload your podcast from the podcast platform to other podcast platforms like Apple, Google, and many more. The podcast platform is the best decision because you have a free plan. You can upload from there to other platforms, and because this Spotify is the biggest podcast platform out there. So the video and the audio file, when you try to compare them, the audio file is something that people actually prefer more, because when they're at school, at home, when they're at work, they can listen to podcasts no matter what. But when it's a video, doesn't matter if it's on Spotify or on our platform, they don't have that time to watch your podcast. So listening to a podcast is way more preferred, at least for now, for people, than watching a podcast. Now, when you upload your podcast for the first time on Spotify, you have to consider whether your podcast is going to be a comedy podcast, or whether it's going to be about society or relationships, or sports or music, movies, or whatever you want to talk about, because people are gonna search for your podcast in your category, so you have to pick your category. Comedy is one of the the most actually listened and watched podcast out there. I have picked the comedy as my category, at least for now, despite that some episodes are actually fun, but some of them are educational, some of them are from my personal experience, and maybe the podcast is actually more like society. But at least for now, I'm gonna stay up with the comedy category. The podcast cover is one of the most important things in podcasting, because the first thing that people actually see on your podcast is your cover. And if you're using a lot of covers, a lot of text, a lot of images, probably people are gonna skip it. There is a guide of how to make the perfect podcast cover on Spotify for podcasting, and they are explaining it really good. Basically, it has to be really simple. Just one image of you, or just a text, the title of your podcast name, the name of the host. Maybe you can add somewhere your podcasting schedule, when you're posting on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. And of course, try to use nice colors, but use not more than 2 or 3, because if you use the entire rainbow, your listeners are most likely to skip this one. And of course, after that, your name, your podcast description, your podcast episode description, your ratings on Spotify, and all those things. What I actually like about making in a audio podcast than making a video podcast is that video podcast is not only taking me more time, but in a video podcasting, you have to make sure that you have a nice decoration, you have to look good, you have to put some effects in your video, while in an audio file you can record your podcast whenever you want and wherever you want. You don't have to be bothered by decoration, by lighting, by your clothes, by your hair, by your facial hair, and all those things. Just you're grabbing your microphone, you talk, you record, and you just upload it. And speaking about uploading, the uploading of a video podcasting that is between 20 to 30 minutes is taking me about 2 hours of uploading, about 40 minutes in uploading, and then processing to an HD, another 40 to 50 minutes, then writing the description and all those things. And it takes me 2 hours every week to upload a video podcast, while an audio podcast is way simple, way easier, and way faster. I just export my audio file from my video one. I drag it to Adobe Studio so it can reduce all those background noises. Then I make a few editing, and then finally I upload it on Spotify for just less than 1 or 2 minutes. I just write the title, put the description, and I upload it, and this is it. Uploading, writing the description, putting the questions, putting the post, putting the cover, 10 to 15 minutes. this is it. Now it's way different making a podcast for 20 minutes and then uploading it for 15 minutes, and it's another thing making a podcast for 20 minutes and uploading it for 2 hours. If you are a freelancer, then I guess you can afford losing that amount of time. But if you're at work and or being a student on a daily basis, you cannot afford losing that time. So audio file is definitely way more easier. So that's why I recommend it to you. And the way that you engage with your listeners, with your audience on Spotify is way more easier and a lot more entertaining, because you can add something on Spotify that you cannot on YouTube and other platforms, and this is the question and answers and the pause. You can put an auto question like what did you like in this episode, or you can put a new one on every single episode. Let's just say in the last episode of verification chaos, I put a poll about asking the people about what cover that they think should be better for a regular people on social media. You know, that check mark that we can all have now. And of course, analyzing on Spotify is something that you should do not on a daily basis, but at least probably 2 times a week, trying to engage, to encourage your audience, asking them questions on social media on what did you did good and what you didn't good on this episode, and how can you improve your podcast. And also about speaking about social media, the one thing that is better on Spotify that is on our platforms is YouTube. When you trying to share your they say that you can share your podcast, but when you share your podcast not the right way, you can get banned. On Spotify, you cannot be banned that easier. So they are what I'm trying to say, that they are a few accounts on Instagram and on Twitter as well. Every single week they're posting a tweet that they're asking you to reply with a comment and put a link with your favorite episode or your newest episode of your own podcast if you have one, so you can share and promote your podcast out there. Sometimes that this could work, sometimes not. Now the NBA season just kicked off, and I cannot wait to see what's gonna happen, the East Coast versus the West Coast. The East Coast, I'm definitely gonna cheer this year for the Chicago Bulls, and the West Coast, of course, the Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry is always in top form, a top player. Despite that, ever since Kevin Durant left, the team is not the same, but I'm pretty sure that this year they're gonna went at least through the semifinals. And also another team is the Los Angeles Clippers, and I cannot wait to see those guys too. And speaking about sports, last night was the Logan Paul versus Dylan Dennis fight. Oh my god, this was waste of time. I already knew that before I even watched it. two guys that neither one of them is actually a professional fighter. One of them an influencer trying to be a boxer, wrestler, singer, and a podcaster, and many other things. The other a friend of Conor McGregor who pretends and tries to be Conor McGregor, but it's really hard to be like him. He was in an MMA fight, he was in a boxing fight. The same thing as Logan Paul. He's a lot of things, but truth is that he's not really good in all of those things. They were fighting 6 rounds, and then Dennis lost by disqualification because he was trying to take Logan Paul down. And then the security guards came in, probably 50 security guards, and it was all over. Logan Paul won another match. And once again we saw that watching matches between influencers, celebrities, and all those kind of people is a serious waste of time, because this is and should be a place only for professional boxers. Dylan Dennis was really good on Twitter, mocking Logan Paul's girlfriend, but he should have done better. I know that he could do better against Logan Paul, but unfortunately he didn't got any chances to prove it. But who knows, maybe we can see a rematch between those two, because this was not the match that we were supposed to see. And now he's challenging Conor McGregor. I mean, what the fuck? You couldn't even beat Dylan Dennis. You won by disqualification. You couldn't knock him out. How do you think that you're gonna knock out Conor McGregor? I'm looking forward to see what you think in the comments about seeing someone from the Paul brothers against Conor McGregor, because this is gonna be an interesting one. Despite it, I don't think that Conor McGregor will ever agree to fight any one of them. Okay guys, thank you once again for joining Living the Vibes podcast with your host Vaimant. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode.